Assuming everything happens for a reason, would it not be important for situations such as anger, resentment, etc., to teach lessons about how to be better, how to improve?
No. You don't need anger, yet anger does serve a purpose. It lets you know you're thinking wrong. You cannot be thinking from a spiritual point of view and be angry. It's impossible. But anger is a very good thing in that it says to you, I am thinking from my ego. Your spirit, your soul, and God can never, ever get angry. We can get angry. It can never get depressed. Can you imagine God as being depressed? Think about that.
Oh, my.
Oh, my goodness. You think we have bad weather now.
Global what?
Global what? So anger is a tool to see, but we've been taught that anger is good because anger gets us something. If we're standing in line and nothing's happening and we get angry and somebody moves, and yes, you can use anger to push a person, but let me tell you this, you're doing it to a boomerang. That, if it doesn't come from that person, that anger is going to come back to you when you express it out in the world. It is going to come back. So why not think of a better way to do it than that? Why not, if you're stuck in a line, say to yourself, okay, God, or okay, higher self, I'm impatient about standing in this line. I don't like this, and I've got some other things to do, and I don't know what to do. This is always the starting point. I don't know what to do, but I also know that you do know what to do. So I'm just going to relax until you show me, and you will be amazed at the things that happen. You'll start talking with somebody. You'll carry on a great conversation. It'll work out into a friendship. It'll work out into a business deal. Something wonderful will happen. When you're angry, you're resisting something that's good every time.
I am devoted to the teachings of Abraham. I think they are positively brilliant. And Abraham tells us that we come here to learn contrasts. If you didn't experience anger, you wouldn't know what peace was, if you didn't experience a lot of things. But they also tell us that we have levels of emotional and spiritual vibration. Anger is a fairly low vibration, but it's not as low as depression. And Abraham always says, if you're depressed, your family will be pretty good with you. After all, you go in your room and don't cause much trouble. When you move all the way up to anger, then you're a real pain in the neck, and they're not so happy to have you around. And you just tell them, I can hardly wait to get to frustration, never mind anger. I'm going up this scale, not down. So each one of the emotions is there to move. If you do pivoting, and you're in any one of the lower emotions, you pivot to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. You cannot go from depression to joy. You have to move your way up the ladder. Perhaps you can skip a few steps, but you can't go all the way. So just keep freeze framing, saying, isn't this interesting? Think of something good. Gratitude is a really good way to move up those levels of vibration, because there's always something to be grateful for, and then you move up to the next one. And don't criticize yourself because you've moved from depression to anger. Say, good, I've gotten this far, now I can keep going. Courage, by the way, is the turning point. When you get to courage, to when you're feeling, okay, I can do this, I believe I can move forward from here, then you have left the lower level of vibrations and are moving into the upper one.
What do you do when you are in a crisis situation and trying to pivot your thoughts but are unable to reach a better feeling thought?
I think what you think about is there are two Chinese symbols. One is for danger and one is for opportunity. And when you put the two together, that's the Chinese word for crisis. Dangerous opportunity. Whenever you're in a situation that's really a bad situation, you've cut yourself, you've hurt yourself, your child's hurt, any dangerous situation that you can think of, even a life-threatening situation, you can always be guided. Now, I don't mean stand around and take punishment. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about the willingness to stop looking out there for the answer, because it's not. If you can pull back just a little bit, if you could say to a crisis, isn't this interesting? My car has just swerved. I'm spinning around. I have no idea where it's going. Isn't this interesting? Now, that would take a lot of practice to get to this point, but you could. Because when that car is spinning around out of control, the sidewalk is wet, you don't know where you're going to land. And so you might as well enjoy the ride. And that sounds awful. I actually was through that when I was 18. I was my first year in college, and I was tutoring high school kids in math. And I was late to an appointment and driving along what still is 62nd Avenue North in a slick rain thing. And then I was coming up to 34th Street, US 19, and I saw there was no red light. There was a stop sign at the time. And I realized where I was coming, and I was going 60 miles an hour. And I knew if I slammed on the brakes, I would stop right in the middle of US 19 and would hit 50 times. So I began to apply the brakes softly, but the car immediately started to fishtail. And I was going like this as I was trying to correct as I'm going along. Got down about 40 miles an hour or so. And I was about to go out. And so something told me, I turned the wheel. And my car went completely around 3 times and back into a ditch, one of these drainage ditches. And the ditch itself caught me like a catcher's mitt, totaled the back end of the car. And the only way I was hurt is that my arms the next morning were very sore because I had literally bent the steering wheel. Those were those old hard rubber steering wheels in the 60s. You can imagine what that was like. But you don't know how much strength you have when you're in that kind of a situation. And I can remember that. And I can remember being totally clear-headed and not afraid, and not knowing what to do, but just doing it. And it worked. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
We have a minister friend who told us that one of her congregants who had worked with us, isn't this interesting, woke up in an ambulance. She didn't know how she got there, but she was in the ambulance. And she thought, well, I've never been in an ambulance before. So, you can have that mindset if you choose that this is an experience I'm going to go through. I'm going to learn something new here, and I'm just going to go with the experience.
How do you pivot out of an argument, a personal one?
You have to remember that a pivot is something you do inside you, and you can do it in the middle of an argument. You can get to the point where you could be having an argument, and you could step outside of yourself and watch yourself arguing with the other person. Number one, it gives you an extreme advantage in the argument. You can do that. If you can pull yourself completely out and not be locked into that back and forth and watch and say, isn't that interesting? He's got a good point there. But, I've got a good point when I said that was good. I wonder how this is going to be resolved. If you were in that mindset, number one, you could end the argument very easily. But the only reason that the argument keeps building and getting tougher and tougher is that both individuals are invested totally in their egos. And they're fueling their egos. And you can't get the other person to stop fueling their ego. You can stop fueling your own. Doesn't mean give up. It doesn't mean give in. It simply means step back and watch yourself. Watch your own argument. You might even say, well, that's a silly point. I can think of a much better way to win this argument, if that's what your objective was. But when you're in the argument, you're upset. That's the problem. Not the other person, not the argument. It is your own upsetness. And it is a form of a crisis. It's a dangerous opportunity. Everything that opposes you, everything is an opportunity to change something inside yourself that will make your life better. Everything. Isn't that wonderful?
I wish I could convince you how much fun it is to start to work with your ego. When you really decide to do it, so much of your life is guided by your ego. So much of your life you're defending your way of doing things, or you're trying to get and this is a universal you, and I'm part of that universal you. I'm not sitting up here saying I don't have ego problems, because I certainly do. I also have ego joys, by the way. I love to let my ego go when I know what it's doing. It's when I don't know what it's doing that I get into trouble. And in an argument frequently, and I won't say John and I argue very much, but we start with an intellectual argument, and sometimes it gets a little personal. I can really say, I know this is not me that's having this argument. My ego is having this argument. I don't even feel what I'm saying. What I'm saying is to make my point, not because it's the way I really want to see this evolve. And so once you do that, I can tell you the ego just goes, just disappears. Once you acknowledge it, it just disappears. And one or the other of us will say, I just really don't want to talk about this now. It isn't important. I didn't mean to get into it. And we just walk away from it. And it never comes up again because it wasn't our argument. It was this leftover stuff that somehow or other one or the other has to be right. And like he said in the slide, I would rather be happy. I would rather be at peace. I would rather go do something I like to do than stand there and have an argument about something I don't really care about anyway.
I learned how to win an argument with her. And I want to give this to all you guys. Here it is. You're probably right. Notice the word probably.
And he probably is.
When you've gotten in a state of exhaustion, how can you pivot out of it?
Go to sleep.
Go to sleep, yeah.
That works.
Take a nap. That Winnie the Pooh says, oh, bother, I think I'll take a nap. Just do a Winnie the Pooh on it.
Look at the question and look at the implications of the question itself. When you've gotten yourself, how did they pronounce it?
When you've gotten in a state of exhaustion.
You've gotten in that state of exhaustion because you've allowed your ego to run free and sap out every bit of energy from you. If you spent 5 minutes in meditation or 5 minutes with a gratitude journal, you could bring that energy right back, literally. And we're going to show you some techniques in a week or so when we do the EFT stuff of how to, right at that time, get your energy back. Now, you can't do this in the middle of an argument. You got to withdraw yourself from the argument itself.
Oh, they're not in an argument now. They're exhausted.
They're
now,
exhausted.
They may be exhausted because of the argument.
Because of the argument, that could be too. But when you are that emotionally drained, it is because you have focused for a long period of time on negative thoughts that do not agree with your highest good. That's what a negative thought is, that which does not agree with your highest good. And you've focused on that again and again, and you've talked about it, and you've called people and told them, and you've gossiped, and you've listened to other people talk about their equally bad situation. It's just like someone stuck a hose in you and turned a faucet and drained all the energy out of you. So you have to literally withdraw. Your energy, without any technique whatsoever, will come back if you just rest. Now, rest means shutting your mind off. It doesn't mean laying down and let it continue to whir with the same old thoughts because you're still losing energy. So it's a matter of you choosing, and it's part of what we're teaching, choosing to back off from the ego, back off from the situation, and look at it. The moment you're looking at yourself, if you've split your attention, so part of your attention is looking at the rest of you, the energy stops going out. It can't. The only way the energy can go out of you is through the ego. And if you disengage it, the energy stops. And if you happen to gauge something positive, it comes back quicker.
One thing I've learned in over 6 decades is don't make any serious decisions when you're seriously exhausted. Mm-hmm. Be sure that you get some sleep or have a diversion. I tell the women in my women's retreats, read a trashy novel. I don't mean smutty, I just mean trashy. Just read something that puts you into someone else's life and you don't have to make any major decisions about it. Watch some mindless TV, play Free Cell or Solitaire on the computer. Do something that takes you out of the situation and then go to sleep, and then you will be much clearer-headed and much better able to deal with life in the morning.
I don't know why you say mindless TV. Is there any other kind?
Well, something that doesn't engage you so much as just entertains you. In my case, it's HGTV.
How do you deal with the unexpected or the strong immediate reaction of negative feelings that we all experience at times?
Well, if we were going to teach you to lift weights, we wouldn't start with a 500-pound barbell, would we? We would start you out with 10 or 15 or 20 or 50 pounds or 100 pounds. And as you practice, you could lift more and more weight. And almost always when we teach something like this, people want to ask the 500-pound question right up front. How do I do it when it's 500 pounds? Well, when it's 500 pounds, it's gotcha. But why don't you start with 20 pounds? Why don't you start at the lower point and build your way up? You can always withdraw mentally from any situation, and that will help. But this is a practice that will take you months or years to really get good at. But a little bit of work, a few weeks worth of work will make a huge difference in your life, just a few weeks. So why not start? And don't be concerned about it. If sometimes I don't get it right, so what? Isn't that interesting? I really blew it that time. I had all this practice. I've been practicing for weeks, not getting it, and I haven't. Things have happened. People cut me off, and I was fine with that. And then I get this bill. Why those and all those other words?
What?
You know those bills. And you get into this snit about this situation. Don't be upset with yourself for being upset. Oh, isn't that interesting? I got upset again. Isn't that nice? I didn't get upset all week. This is the first time I've gotten upset all week. That's the best I've ever done. You're already thinking positively when you're thinking that way. And you're diffusing the particular situation that you're in right now.
If you get whacked by something, I mean, physical or mental or emotional, if you get in an automobile accident, if you lose your job, if you get thrown out of your apartment, if you have a terrible argument with someone, you break up a relationship, those are big things. Stop just a little time to be kind to yourself before you start deciding how to handle it. Just let it be for a minute. I was really interested. My mother was in a terrible, terrible automobile accident. She broke 14 bones.
At 87.
At 87. And they air evac'd her to the hospital. And they just cleaned her up and left her in the emergency room in that state for a little while. And I said to the doctor, what are you going to do? And he said, I'm not going to do anything until her body has a chance to deal with the trauma. Before we set the first bone, if we're going to set any, she needs to settle down. Every nerve and frazzled piece of her has to come back into some sort of alignment before there's anything that we can do that can help her. What an intelligent doctor. If only we knew how to do that for ourselves in a less physical way when something completely jolts us. Part of life is being kind to yourself. Part of what we're going to be talking about in my next lesson is being compassionate, and part of that compassion is being compassionate with ourselves. We are terribly hard on ourselves. So if you are in, a serious, how was that worded?
An unexpected or strong immediate reaction.
Yeah, you have a strong immediate negative reaction. Stop and take care of yourself. Just sit down for a few minutes and absorb it. Have a cup of tea. Do something that gives you a little bit of comfort, and then say, okay, isn't this interesting? What do I do now? But give yourself a break. Cut yourself some slack.
You want tea? What about scotch? Wouldn't it?
Okay. You're pouring. It's okay with me.
How much does the ego influence the perception of fear? And it ends by, I'm so glad you gave a new meaning to the term.
Fear and love and fear are opposite ends of a pole. They're vibrations. And fear is a very low vibrations. And it has lots of other friends. Fear, anger, upset, all of those things are all, the things that are what we call negative are all fear-based. And I don't mean necessarily fear like I'm afraid of a grizzly bear coming after me. It's like I'm afraid things won't work out. I'm afraid of the future. I'm afraid I might get fired. I'm afraid of, and you just fill in all the blanks that you might be afraid of. And that fear is an emotion unto itself. And love is a totally different emotion. It is accepting, it's kind, it's compassionate, it allows, etc. So these are extreme negative poles. And the first, read that question one more time.
How much does the ego influence the perception of fear?
The ego does not only influence, the ego is the only thing that's afraid.
It's the only thing we can die.
In the middle of your car spinning around 3 times, your soul is perfectly calm. And when the ego is so frightened out of its wits it can't operate, the soul steps in and operates and tells you to turn the car a certain way, even though you had no idea how to do that. Literally, the ego is what is afraid. And so when you're in fear, you can simply make the statement, I am operating under ego. For a little teeny fear, like someone that might not like my new haircut, or a huge fear they might fire me, whatever it is, it's always the ego that's in charge when you're feeling that. And if you can switch over to the soul, you will not feel the fear at all. Fear is a natural thing. It's in animals. It's in everybody. Fear is to let you know something is not right. And fear of a saber-toothed tiger was a very handy thing to have if you were a cave person, because fear sets off the fight or flight mechanism, puts adrenaline and 6 or 8 other chemicals and electrical charges in your body which allow you to run away or fight for your life. So we need it. The body needs to have some fear, but it doesn't need to be in charge of your life. And it needs to be used to alert you to a problem and then dissipated as quickly as you can. It's just a signal that everything is not exactly the way it's supposed to be. But when we live in fearful lives, everything is a signal. I wonder what she thinks about me. I wonder if they're not thinking about me. We fear everything. That's out of whack.
I do not want to hold on to or bury any anger to deal with later. I want to be sure I am really releasing the effects by changing how I am reacting by pivoting.
If you fully pivot, there'll be no anger there. You remember, the anger is the signal that you're going in the wrong direction. Pivoting is turning in the right direction, and you'll know that you have pivoted when you feel better. That's the thing. My anger is dissipating. That means I'm pivoting. I may not pivot 100%. I may not move from being fired to saying life is just wonderful. I think I'll go to the beach. But we might start moving a little bit away by saying, well, I got fired, but I got 4 weeks severance pay and several weeks of vacation. And I really did need some time off. I think I'm going to take next week off. Those are all much more positive thoughts. That's what pivoting is. It isn't getting to the point where you get your new job. It's simply letting yourself off the hook from the feeling of fear or anger that's overpowering you, to allow the communications from your higher self. The higher vibrations, the love and the acceptance and all of those vibrations which will guide you, cannot get through when you're in this low level called fear. They just can't get through. They just don't match. You can't turn your radio station to 6:30 a.m. and get what's on 1050 FM. You're just not going to get it when you're down there in those low levels. You've got to get up a little higher to get the information. So your job is to tune the knob, to move your vibrations gradually up the scale to where you want them to be. Don't worry about, a lot of people think that anger and upset will help you get something done. It will not. It'll make it worse, no matter what your experience is. And yes, you've moved people with anger, you've stopped them, but all you've done is hurt yourself. Even if anger works, it didn't work for you in the long run. So don't be afraid about, how do I make sure I do a good job? Anything that's a little better is a good job. Just barely changing, that's a good job. And congratulate yourself.
I think the most important part of that answer is that you'll know when you really have pivoted, when you really are not angry anymore, when you don't have any negative feeling. I mean, it happens naturally if you discover your anger was misplaced. Tell them a story about the man on the bus that gets poked in the back.
Oh, a fellow was having a really terrible day. He'd had a hard time all week, and he had an important meeting to go to, so he got up early and got himself a good breakfast, and he went out, and his car wouldn't start. Well, he was really upset, but he knew there was a bus line, and he ran down to the bus stop, and he got on the bus, and he hadn't been on the bus a long time, and he gave the bus driver a $5 bill, and the bus driver says, we don't make change on the bus anymore. And so he had to make change with some other people, and he finally made the change and got in there. And he was livid, and he looked around, there was no seats. So here he is holding on to that rail. The bus is going slow, stopping every place. He's getting angrier and angrier, looking at his watch. Is he going to be late? And all of a sudden, someone pokes him in the back with a stick. And he wheels around in anger to pop this guy. And he notices it's a blind man. What happened to the anger? It just went away. Now, if he hadn't been blind, he would have made him blind.
Which is another whole thing on anger. But my point I wanted to make with that was that, and he tells the story so well, and much better than I do, is that if something lets you know there was no reason for your anger, it disappears in a second. So you have to come up for the reason that it is not healthy for you to be angry. And the pivoting process is creating the reason that it is senseless for you to be angry about anything as it would be a blind man poking you with a stick.
That's why it didn't completely. But this was the question: how much does the ego influence the perception of fear? And at the bottom it said, "I'm so glad you gave a new meaning to the term that life is empty and meaningless."
Right. Life itself, the stuff out there, is meaningless. However, don't give up on meaning. Meaning is extremely important. You can't have any kind of a good life unless it means something to you. But what it means is up to you. As Neil Donald Walsh says, there's no big blackboard in the sky where it says, this is your purpose in life. You get to decide what your purpose is. And you can have the power of all the universe to do whatever you decide your purpose is. And I do think that most of us come in with some kind of a general idea of what we want to do in our lives. And if we are doing it, we're happy. And if we're not, we are not. So allowing yourself to understand that meaning is what you place, not out there, is the whole key to that.
And if you're not happy, chances are you do not at the moment have a meaningful purpose that you have chosen. I mean, you are here in the land of opportunity. You can be on any place on the planet doing anything in the world there is to do. There is absolutely nothing limiting you. The only thing that limits you is yourself. But if you choose to do nothing or to wait around for, what did you say, wait around for a duck to fly in your mouth, it's not going to happen. You have to make the decision about whether or not you want to go after that duck. And the duck can be anything. It can be a career opportunity. It can be travel. It can be learning a new hobby. It can be creating a new relationship. It can be serving humanity. There are millions and millions and millions of choices, and one of them deeply resonates with you if you will let it. And the minute you find out what that is, you will just have the best time until you're tired of doing that and you decide to have another something you want to do. You do not any longer have to start a career at 20 and be doing the same thing at retirement age. Most people now, they say, will have 7 different careers in their lifetime, quite different from what my mother and father and many of your mothers and fathers did. They had 1 career, possibly 2 if something went wrong. Now we have them because there are so many wonderful things to do. We try to get as much into one lifetime as we can.
And if you ain't having fun, you're not paying attention.
Right, because there's plenty of fun.
I think that's it, Dave.
That's it.
All right.
Thank you.